Hi, and welcome to a new video of this MOOC. This is the first video of a set of videos in which we will develop a complex Angular application that consists on the implementation of a TicTacToe game. Thanks to the implementation of this game, we will apply all the concepts we have learned about Angular. So the application will be composed by a set of components that share information between them. We will encapsulate the functionality of our application using modules, and we will use services and dependency injection in order to manage the state of the application. So probably all of you already know how a TicTacToe game works. So we have basically a board with 9 squares in which the players will perform their movements, and we have included here a label on the top of the board in which we specify the turn of which player happens in each moment. Okay. So from the point of view of the structure of our application, we will have the application component, that is the default component is created when we create a new Angular application, and that will compose the whole application of the TicTacToe. Then we will create a game component in which we will put all the functionalities and all the views related to the game. This is important because if in the future we want to improve or to extend our application, including other games or other menus in the application, we will conserve this game component, adding in parallel new components with the new functionalities. Inside the game component, we will have a separate component for displaying the turn of the game that we have called header component, and then the board component in which the squares are displayed. Inside the board component, we will have 9 square components, each of them for each square displayed in the game. Okay, so each of these squares will be clickable, and when the user clicks on one of these squares, the value displayed in this square will change with an X or with an O, depending on the turn of the player that is playing in each moment. So this is how the application will be structured in terms of components. As I said before, we are going also to encapsulate components in modules in order to divide the different functionalities of the game. So we are going to create a game module that will contain the header, the square, the board, and the game components. If in the future we add different functionalities to the application, we will create different modules in order to encapsulate the new components we need. Finally, in order to manage the state of the application, we are going to create a service, the state service, in which we will have an interface that we will also call state, with the turn of with the turn that corresponds in each moment, and with a matrix containing the values that we have to display in the board. Okay, so an example of this state in a specific moment of the game would be this one that you can see in the slide. For instance, in this case, we have here the turn of player X, and we have the values that in this case are the ones you can see that are displayed here in this example. Okay, so this is a matrix, the 3 files, 3 rows and 3 columns, in which we will save the status of the squares. Okay, so the header component will subscribe to changes in this state service in order to update the turn it has to display here in the component, and the square components will subscribe to the status in order to display the values of each square, and also will update the status when a user clicks in a square and it has to change the value of a specific square. Okay, so conceptually, this is how the application will be structured in terms of components, in terms of module, and with this state service to manage the state of the application. And we have here which components are subscribed or are updating the state of the application. In order to implement our TicTacToe, we will follow two big steps. In the first step, we will create all the structure of the application, so we will create the application. We will create the game module and the game component inside, and then the header and the board components also inside the game module. Finally, we will create the square component, and we will implement the different parts of the templates of these components. Then in the second step, we will create the state, the service state, with the interface and with the default values for this state of the application, and we will inject this service in the different components in the application, implementing the needed logic in order to subscribe to changes and in order to update the state of the application. Finally, we will modify the squares in order to make them not clickable once the player has already clicked on them. Okay. Of course, you have a final solution of this application in the GitHub repository. You can see here in this link. And what I'm going to do now in terms of coding is just to go to the terminal and to create a new Angular project, ng-new TicTacToe, because as you know, this is an order that takes time to execute. So I will create this new project, and in the next video I will start with the next steps of our process for creating this application. Okay, so that's all for this brief introduction of what we are going to implement in our TicTacToe game, and see you in the next video. Bye.